Hi, my name is Isabella Johnston, the Intern Whisperer. Our show is brought to you by Employers for Change, and also this week's tip comes from builtin.com. We want to thank them for putting together this great list of unconscious bias. This particular bias is more commonly known as peer pressure, and it relates to the tendency people have to act similar to the people around them, regardless of their own personal beliefs or idiosyncrasies. So when a hiring team gets together to review a candidate's application and any documents that go with them, they're getting ready to have that interview. Conformity bias can cause individuals to sway their opinion of a candidate to match the opinion of the majority. That's not right. We don't want to do that kind of buy-in. Everybody needs to be an independent thinker. The problem is the majority is not always right, which may cause your team to miss out on an excellent candidate because the individual opinions become muddled in a group setting. So how can we avoid conformity bias? Well, it's going to be one of those things that the hiring team has to get together when they're reviewing a candidate. They have to write down all of the feedback that they have and their individual opinions separately, not collectively as a group when the interview ends. Then you have your team come together and review what everyone wrote down as individuals so that you can hear their impartial opinions and avoid conformity bias in the process. So this week's guest I want to welcome to the stage, is a guest that was the top one most listened to audio download. She got first place when we did our competition for the end of 2022, Victoria Yampolsky. Did I mess up your name still? Please tell me no. Yampolsky.
That's right.
There we go. Thanks. She is the founder of Startup Station. She is a strategic CFO, a serial entrepreneur, a speaker, and the founder of also a Power Up program. We're going to talk about that for female entrepreneurs. As I mentioned, she was the #1 most downloaded show in 2022. So welcome back.
Thank you so much, Isabella. It's such a pleasure to be back. We've talked before the show that I've enjoyed my time on this podcast so much, and I'm very happy that what we talked about resonated with so many people.
Yes. And I'm going to remind our listeners, you can go back to season 5, episode 222, and you can download that on your favorite streaming channel. We share our podcast on over 20 podcast streaming channels. It's also available on YouTube for individuals that are deaf. We do special closed caption and also for internationals. So they can find us on Facebook. Our podcast is on Facebook. It's also on YouTube, and then over 20 plus streaming channels. And the most popular country is the Ukraine's second most popular that listens to us. And I think that's because of you.
That is very nice for you to say that, and I'm very happy. Hello, everybody in Ukraine who's listening right now. We are there for you, and we feel for what's going on every day, and we send you love.
Yes, that is very true. So we did our little refresh, but tell our listeners a little bit more about you, where you went to school, and just a few minutes of that, and how you ended up in finance. That's so unusual for a lot of women, right?
Yes, unfortunately, I hope that that's going to be more of a norm, just like in programming, that there will be more women pursuing various fields and thinking that anything is possible. So I'm originally from Russia. I came when I was 16, almost 30 years ago. I was born in St. Petersburg, which is one of the, in my opinion, most beautiful cities in the world. And after having visited many cities in Europe, I still think so. And hopefully at some point I'll be able to go back once the political situation stabilizes and say hi to my favorite places. So I came when I was 16. I finished high school early, and I didn't speak any English. And it seems almost impossible now that English is actually easier for me to speak English than to speak Russian on some topics because I've been educated here. But when I came, everything was a struggle. And yet I was able to go to school. I went to a great university, Cornell. I love it so much, very involved. And if anyone out there is applying and wants to reach out to me and as an alum, you can reach out using my business email. I think it's an amazing school where they really care about you no matter where you come from, which is, I think, what this country stands for as well, where, it's open to people from all over the place if you're willing to do the work. And so after that, I studied computer science. I discovered that it wasn't really my passion. I didn't want to spend my time programming, so I went to do IT consulting. And I did that in New York. I happened to be in fintech, got interested in finance, went to business school, Columbia Business School, which was also in New York. Then I ended up in Wall Street in Deutsche Bank, and I actually ended up in a very interesting group, which was not usual. There are traditional routes that you can go when you work on Wall Street: investment banking, sales and trading, or research. And in research, you would typically cover a certain sector. But my group was like a hedge fund, where we were looking for trade ideas within the company's capital structure, and we're publishing those ideas to sell to hedge funds that were Deutsche Bank's clients. And so I got a chance not to focus on just one industry, but every 2 weeks to research 3 or 4 new industries in both US and Europe and get exposure to many different companies. And that served as a great foundation for the work that I'm doing now as part of my company, where I also get to work with many founders across different industries and understand what they're trying to do and what their business models are, etc. So Wall Street experience was great, but I discovered my passion as an entrepreneur meant that I have to be doing multiple things and not just any one thing. And so I left to actually start a company in media and entertainment. Because what I didn't mention is that for 8 years before, starting in Russia and continuing in the US when I was in college, I was an actress. And that's, I guess, a passion that doesn't necessarily go with computer science. But I think that if you do different things, it actually expands your mind and increases your creativity and allows you to think outside the box. And I continue to do creative things even now. But because I was an actress, I was interested in media and entertainment. I didn't want to continue acting, but I wanted to get into producing. So I started a company, and that was my first foray into entrepreneurship. I tried to raise $165 million for a slate of 5 films for both production and distribution. Failed miserably because as a first-time entrepreneur, I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship or raising money or media and entertainment. But I learned a lot. And I think that's a lesson of not getting what I want and making all of these mistakes was absolutely necessary for my personal growth and for my professional growth, because it taught me humility. It taught me to do more research. It taught me to do more background checks on the people that you can trust. It taught me to not try to do something without building a track record leading up to it, which is very similar to a startup journey where you start with an MVP and then you get a few customers and then you grow it, as opposed to raising as your first venture $165 million, which is a lot of money, even for people who have been in the industry for a long time. So that venture didn't work out. And after that, I started the Startup Station because what I realized that the problem that I saw in the film industry, where there were many producers who were passionate about their projects, but didn't quite think about how to sell them after they were completed. What stars should you attract in order to attain distribution in various territories? What distribution strategy should you have at all, right? So they were just very focused on making their project without thinking who's going to buy it or even about the target audience, right? And this is a mistake that a lot of startup founders make too, where they get so enamored when they're creating that they forget that this is a business, and they forget that they're not creating it for themselves, but in fact for somebody else. And that's how you can make a lot of impact. So what I realized is that because they don't have the business and financial acumen, I can help them. And so the Startup Station, even though first started as a strategy and finance consulting, very quickly shifted into financial consulting and CFO advisory because It was a very clear need. Either people knew what cash flow was or they didn't. And if you don't understand finance, then it becomes very difficult to raise money and to explain to investors why they should invest in your venture. But it also becomes very difficult to execute and track cash and understand which parts of the strategy are working or not. And so the Startup Station was born. We're actually celebrating this month 10-year anniversary since the founding of the
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a big milestone, and a lot has happened. The company grew, from a little consultancy to what it is now. So now there is also an education arm that's been launched in 2015. I began teaching finance to entrepreneurs in New York. I had 2 meetups, several thousand people in New York and Boston. It created a curriculum for early stage founders that would educate them on the topics of financial modeling, accounting, valuation, and startup finance, so that if they're in a position where they cannot afford to hire a consultant or somebody to help them, they are able to do it themselves, but also to educate them in these areas, because even if they do have somebody who can help them, they still need to be able to talk with them intelligently and understand what they're saying. And they still need to be able to speak with investors and understand what their concerns are. And if you don't understand finance, which is the language of investors, or accounting, which is the language of investors, you put yourself in a situation which is weak, right? And you want to be in a position of strength when you are negotiating for the future of your company and for the future of your dreams. And so that the education arm was launched in 2015. We began doing a lot of community stuff, social media, free content, YouTube channel, speaking engagements. After that, because I believe that education is the way to impact the most people, and of course, complemented at some point with one-on-one advice, but to introduce some concepts that are similar, that a lot of people have trouble with. The greatest impact that one can make is one to many. And last year, I finally launched something that I think is the purpose of my life, which is the program Power Up. And that's a program in strategic and financial planning for seed-level female-led ventures to help them scale and raise the next round of capital, which is Series A. And this is, we're fundraising for the program right now. We're pursuing launch in 4 different regions around the world. And it's been going great. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And I have never been more fired up and inspired and motivated as I am now, because I know that I'm in a position to help women around the world to make their dreams come true, and I would like to do it because I can.
That's
my journey in a nutshell.
It is. And my last question that I always have in the first half of the show is, what do you want to be remembered for in your life? And I would say you just answered that question. To have global impact, to help women be able to raise money.
Yes, I would like to be remembered for that. I'm also beginning to advocate for laws to enable fair access to capital for women and minority founders. So I hope that I'll be able to make not only impact on the ecosystem side, but also on the policy side, so that there is support. There's holistic support from all sides. But I also would like to be remembered as somebody who was kind and compassionate and pursued her passions furiously. And as a result, was able to help a lot of people.
Yeah, those are good. Well, let's go back to where we first began, which was Startup Station. So how did you pick that name?
Actually, it wasn't me who picked it. Before I founded the Startup Station, I was advising a startup in a mobile app space when they were just beginning in 2012. And one of the co-founders was a very creative guy. And then when I told him about my idea that I helped them to go from pre-revenue to revenue, help them with the go-to-market strategy, pricing strategy, et cetera, and realized that there was a bigger business opportunity. When I told him about the idea, it was immediate for him. And then I liked that name, and that's it stuck. And so
Nice.
that's, thank you, Matthew, for Lazarus, for giving me the name that is still with my company. That's his
Yeah.
name.
It's nice to have people that inspire us and that are part of the story and to acknowledge them. I love that you did that. So, Startup Station, how do people find it? How can they get started with it? And what
Sure.
stage do they have to be?
Sure. There are two ways in which one can work with the Startup Station on the CFO side. If the company is raising money, we can help you come up with a financial plan to show to investors, which will be a representation of your business plan. And you can use parts of that financial plan as a story for your pitch deck, for the financial parts of your pitch deck. And once the due diligence becomes and investors really dig into your numbers, it's especially important to have a story which you can justify, which clearly connects your strategic decisions and your thinking to financial outcomes and substantiates whatever revenue numbers you want to produce and whatever valuation you'd like to get. So companies that are in the fundraising stage can be anywhere from pre-seed to Series A, have a lot of expertise specifically with ventures that don't have a lot of revenue because of the approach that I've created once I began the Startup Station, which is what I call strategic financial modeling, where we specifically focus on understanding your strategy, modeling your strategic decisions as the drivers of the financial model, and creating the logic that translates them into financial results. But of course, the same model serves as a great business intelligence tool once you raise money, or for any company that doesn't have a financial model like that and is executing, but especially for companies that are experiencing issues or in a state of flux where they experience rapid growth, expanding into a new area, launching new products, or experiencing any other problems. Let's say that they cannot grow, they're in a turnaround stage, they're not sure what their profitability looks like, et cetera, et cetera. So for those companies, we would work with them on a monthly basis and help them solve those issues and help them transition into the in-house team when the time is right. So it can either be on a project basis or on an ongoing basis on the CFO side. For people who would like to learn more about finance, there are online courses available that one can take. They don't assume any prior knowledge of finance. They're 2 hours long. There's 100 questions per course where you can practice some of the concepts that are taught, and they're yours for life. So once you buy it, it's yours to keep if in case you wake up on a Sunday, you want to refresh your accounts receivable knowledge that is available to you.
Oh, so it's ongoing. It's like an ongoing curriculum, it sounds like.
It's available for purchase online, exactly. It's a collection of different courses that can be bought as a bundle or that can be bought separately, depending on people's needs. Absolutely.
Yeah. And where do people go to find this?
www.thestartupstation.com.
You said The Startup Station, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thestartupstation.com.
Okay, making sure everybody knows that. Well, that's good to know. So let's talk about Power Up. What is that? How did you, I know you explained it a little bit at the beginning, but what is it? And where did the inspiration, let's just go deeper into that.
So for the past 2.5 years, I've been teaching at the Bank of America Institute of Female Entrepreneurship at Cornell. It's a program that's funded by Bank of America for women entrepreneurs. It's free to them. It's taught by Cornell. It's a collection of 6 courses. 70% of students are minorities. It graduates around 100,000 students a year. I'm teaching 2 courses a month, so about 500 students a month. And even though my expertise is finance, I was getting assigned courses in communications, growth, leadership, which was actually great because it gave me insight into the minds of entrepreneurs and the challenges that they were experiencing and some of the mindset setbacks that they had that held them back from realizing their dreams and thinking about their business in more ambitious terms, etc. And I started thinking that my curriculum that exists right now, it's not specific to gender. It's specific to subject matter, right? If you want to learn accounting, you take this course. If you want to learn valuation, you take another course. I wanted to create a program for female entrepreneurs to help them because there is a glaring disparity in a fundraising arena where only 2% of capital goes to female-funded teams, more to mixed teams, but it's very difficult to raise money if you were female. And there's a couple of reasons for it. One is that they may not have the expertise. That's not specific to men or women. Startups at different stages face different challenges. So if you don't solve those challenges, you're not going to be able to proceed. The second challenge is what's typically addressed as the confidence gap. But I now, having read a lot about brains and psychology, started calling it the difference in that thinking gap, because women's brain is different and we perceive risk differently. Because biologically we had different roles in family and child care, etc. And on top of that, there are certain societal norms and societal patterns that we've been born into that may affect how we think about ourselves, how we think about the potential of our business, and how we think about the probability of something happening or not. And that all affects how we go about entrepreneurship. So the only way to change something like this would be through self-awareness and psychology training. The third challenge that I saw is that women had less access to investor networks. Investors like to invest in people. And in order to find out which people they can invest in, they go to the people they trust, so they go by recommendation. So if you're not recommended by somebody who an investor trusts, it's much more difficult for you to get that access. You may not even know that this investor is looking for an investment in your company. And so that's the problem with access is a pretty big one. There are some investors out there who say, hey, we would love to invest in women, we would love to invest in minorities, we just don't see them in our pipeline. And our pipeline is already very big. So if one wanted to solve the problem of on inequitable access to capital, one would have to address that. And the final problem is data. Yes, there is data available, some, I would say, aggregate data in terms of female adventurers performing better than, or let's put it this way, the ones that have the most diversity, gender balanced teams performing better than gender imbalanced teams. But there is not necessarily data by country, by region, by industry, in terms of what would that performance looks like for female adventurers. And so there is an inherent perception of higher risk of investing in women that comes from men's view of what a woman's roles could be in a family and responsibilities. And I'll diverge a little bit. We talk to a lot of female founders in terms of the questions that they get when they're fundraising. And a lot of them have nothing to do with the business, but more how are you going to balance your family life and entrepreneurship? Are you planning to get married? Are you planning to have kids? And this is not a question that a man would get, and yet that's reality that one has to know if one wants to address the problems. So these problems can be addressed with network where people know and want to invest in female founders, as well as the presence of data that will make these issues non-relevant because there will be clear proof of what they can do. So Power Up is the program that attempts to solve all of these issues for one specific segment of the market, which is the ventures that have raised their first round of capital and need to scale. Now, why this segment? There's already a lot of support available for ventures that are very young. You have an idea, you want to build an MVP, you want to find your first customers. There are many, many programs available out there. There's not as many programs available for what happens next. And it's at that point that many ventures fail because they're not able to scale. They're not able to scale from 1 million to 10 million, from 500,000 to 5 million. They're not able to not only scale their revenues, but their infrastructure. The biggest need at that point is strategy and financial planning. And that's why, and obviously financial planning is my expertise. That's why I joined forces with my co-founder, Hemp Hampton, who is a chief revenue officer and fractional chief revenue officer for many startups and multi-exit founder who supplies the strategy side. Now, strategy and finance are intricately connected because if you don't have a strategy, then what does the financial plan represent, right? It's just some dreams that will never be executed on because they're not really connected to the company's operations and what the company is planning to do. And on the flip side, if you have a strategy, but you haven't done the work to evaluate its financial feasibility, the resources that you're going to need in order to implement it, the funding that's required in order to put it into action, you're again in a situation where you created something that cannot be executed in reality. So the two come together, and that's why our program is focused just in this area, which is a traditionally very weak area for a lot of accelerators, where they kind of skim over those issues because they're not as relevant at early stages, but they are very relevant the second you get capital and you need to scale. The second thing that we're solving, like I've mentioned, is the difference in the mindset gap. And that is executed as a weekly group coaching sessions. What I should mention for the first part of the program is that, so the program is structured as the initial boot camp, during which the founders put together a 2-year roadmap for them to execute on. Why 2 years? That's the length of time that it takes on average to raise the next round of capital. And so we want to support them for the entire length of time, as opposed to 3 or 6 months that other programs have. And so after the boot camp, they will go through quarterly one-day assessments to assess where they are, make sure that they stay on track, and help them to react to any challenges and evaluate new opportunities. The same cohort that begins working together in the bootcamp, let's say 10 or 12 companies, will continue to meet every week for weekly group coaching sessions. And this is a critical part of our program, and what really makes it different from anything else out there is the focus on psychology and the focus on coaching. And so these sessions will serve two purposes. One, it will be an inbuilt support group for entrepreneurs to go and share their successes and talk about their challenges, and realize that even if they have setbacks, it says nothing about their potential as human beings, or even their potential for their venture. It's just simply part of their journey. And if they change their relationship with rejection and failure, if they become unafraid of negative circumstances, they will be able to achieve so much more. And the second part of it will be the psychology part, where we'll introduce some concepts in terms of how our brains work, our subconscious biases, how people think, how they make decisions on both sides, because we have to interact with both genders, so that entrepreneurs become aware of their thought patterns, which can be unhelpful, as well as very specific tools how to change them, so that after 8 months, about 8 months of doing this work, they can see real differences in their perspective and how they think about themselves, how they see the potential of their ventures. And it's our hope that after 2 years, they'll they will feel limitless, they will feel bold, they will feel unencumbered to try whatever they like, and will produce the next generation of female entrepreneurs who will not only raise Series A, which is the purpose of the program, but will go on and raise Series B's and C's and D's, which is how you can breach the gender funding gap, not by raising just little rounds of capital. The third part is access, and so we're creating a global network of Power Up ambassadors who are all supporters of the program. It's already present in 25 countries on 5 continents, and these are investors, philanthropists, academics, C-suite executives, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. And that again serves two purposes. One is, let's say we run this program. It's a virtual program, by the way. It can be run in person, it can be done virtually. Let's say we run this program somewhere in emerging markets. And of course, for any specific emerging market, the hope is to go to a bigger market. And it helps if you have some friendly faces in those markets for you to expand. Mm-hmm. And so by creating an international network, we're making it easier for companies to go cross-border. And the second and very important aspect is what I've talked about before, which is access, right? By having people who know about the companies coming out of the program and ready for investment, it makes it easier for our ambassadors to refer them to people in their networks, and for these companies to become trusted referrals and get the access that they don't currently have. And the final aspect is data. I've talked about it before, where there is some data available, but there's no granular data per industry, per region around the world. And this is what we're going to be collecting as part of Power Up. Anytime we have an event in the program, starting with the pre-assessment at the boot camp and continuing with every program event, which is a quarterly assessment, and then after on a semi-annual basis. And what that will do is by the time that they're going to go for fundraising, there will already be an 18-month worth of a transparent track record of execution, which will clearly indicate the level of risk involved in each venture, which is an issue for a lot of startups. They may not have the right finance infrastructure and the right processes in order to record the data and produce those records. It doesn't matter, by the way, here with the male or female lab, but if you have those records, it makes it much easier for investors to make a decision because it's part of due diligence. And so Power Up is a combination of expertise training, coaching, network, and data as a four-pronged solution to solve for the gender funding gap worldwide.
So I pulled it up on your website and I was going through it as you were talking about it here. And I was looking through, you have some really nice diversity on the website too. So I can see that it's something that would benefit women. I think women anywhere in the world can look at it and go, oh, I see somebody that looks like me. Whether it was race, ethnicity, age, whatever. So I love that. That's super helpful. And then you have allies. You have the male allies that are there.
Yes, that's very important to us because we don't want to create a program that fights discrimination by discriminating someone from participating.
Mm-hmm.
And because the capital now is concentrated in the hands of men, it would be foolish not to get them involved and not to get them on our side and explain how much more we can do together, how much more economic impact, innovation, and return on capital we can achieve if we remove any boundaries from making decisions.
Mm-hmm. And you've got ambassadors too and testimonials. So you are like really killing it over here. I think that's wonderful. I saw our friend Andy. I'm going to give Andy Lyons a little shout out there too, because she's awesome.
Yeah.
But the ambassadors, let's talk more about the ambassadors. How do people get involved with that?
If someone would like to become an ambassador, they can go on, they can either reach out to me because right now we curate who joins the network, or they can fill out a form on our website, which says, join to apply to be an ambassador, and then we'll review the information and get back to the person who's applying. The role is a public endorsement role, and we want supporters who can lend credibility to the program around the world. We would love to add more countries and expand our reach, or we would like to add people who can help introduce us to potential sponsors, corporate sponsors, or philanthropic sponsors for the program. The 4 regions we're pursuing right now are US, Africa, Jordan, and Australia, given our connections in each region. So if you have connections in those regions, I would love to talk to you. Now, there are other ways to get involved with, and then just to talk a little bit more about the ambassadors. So there is no time commitment, there's no cost to join. All we're asking is if you know someone, once we approve your application, if you know somebody who can be helpful to the program, who can help us advance the cause. It could be media connection, it can be a sponsor connection, it could be an investor connection or entrepreneur connection, then you connect us to those people. And that's how we've been able to build a network right now and get unbelievable people involved. And that's how we've been able to get Power Up to where it is, to exploring lunch in different regions is through our network. What do you get out of it is introductions to our Power Up ambassadors. Once we launch the program, of course, invitations to all the program events. And then our, if you're an investor, we can make our recommendations in terms of which companies would be the best investments based on how they're doing in the program. Of course, if there are any other opportunities that we can procure from our network, then we're happy to do it too. So it's a networking and a public endorsement opportunity. There will also be coaches in the program. So the program is structured as a combination of workshops and one-on-one sessions with companies. And the coaches are either fractional strategy consultants or strategy officers or chief financial officers to mimic the 2 parts of the program, which is strategic and financial planning. So if you are fall into one of those expertise, we can talk to you, not just being an ambassador, but also becoming a coach in the program once we get funding. And because it's a virtual program, you can get a chance to mentor companies around the world, which I think is very exciting as well, and bring them your expertise.
So I'm looking for the ambassador link and I don't see it. So this is a wealth of great information on your website. How does somebody navigate to that?
I would imagine that you will click on the link, find out more about ambassadors.
Oh, I see the link now that you said it. Yep, it's down here. Learn more about Power Up ambassadors. I want to make sure our listeners know how to navigate through your website for sure.
We'll make sure to put up a link to join the ambassadors as well. I will check if it's not there, then we'll.
No, it is. I think it is. It says apply to be.
Okay.
So, yep, it's all there.
Yes.
It's all there. So it's all good. Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds fun. And then I was looking at your courses. They look really great, by the way. Really colorful. It catches my eye. You have all types of choices there, you know, being able to create a case study, the models included, being able to understand financials, valuation, all good stuff that people would need to know. Women, we'll say women, because that's what we're talking about.
But for women, for a lot of women, I would say finance represents an area of fear because they don't understand it. And it's really nothing to be afraid of, because when you learn another language, you also don't understand anything when you go to a foreign country. And I definitely can attest to that, because when I came here, I didn't understand anything. And then you learn, and then everything starts to make sense. And that's exactly like finance. Counting is nothing than just a bunch of mathematical definitions that people have created in order to define certain concepts to help them understand how the company is doing. And you can think of this language as the language with which your venture communicates with you, right? It tells you which problems it has, where it needs help, where it wants to go. And as an entrepreneur, don't you want to speak that language? That's your baby. So
yeah,
nothing to be afraid of.
Not at all. Not at all. All right. So let's come back over here to like where my show notes were. I think that gives everybody a really good insight as to what that program is. And by the way, just a reminder, it is on the Startup Station website and specifically says Power Up. There's just like, it's so easy to find right there. So you did some really cool stuff in the summer, and I want to talk about what you did this summer that was in June and in France. So let's talk about that.
Sure. So Power Up had its first inaugural event in partnership with Prepare for VC in Boston New Technology and Born Global Ventures and a few other organizations. And the idea was to discuss what's happening on the gender funding gap front around the world. And we were able to bring together speakers from US, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Australia. And a person from Australia attended the workshop at 1 a.m. for time because we couldn't make, all the time zones work. And it just speaks to how passionate she was about the topic, and she really wanted to bring her expertise forward. And so it was amazing to get everybody in one place to talk about what's happening around the world on the funding front, and a range of initiatives that are being launched in order to address it, ranging from nonprofit to government to private capital to corporate. We had a person from PayPal who manages 2 funds, $100 million funds dedicated to diversity and inclusion. And she talked about her strategy and what PayPal as a global corporate is doing to address these issues. We had a woman representing Vital Voices, which is an amazing organization in Washington, founded by Hillary Clinton and Margaret Albright, to empower women around the world, and then all the programs that they have in place in order to achieve it. They've been doing it for 25 years. We've talked about our partner for Power Up, Shequity, which is a firm in Africa supporting female entrepreneurs in the region, as well as running an accelerator, which is part of the ecosystem support. And another, our venture partner in the Middle East, Among Ventures, and is doing similar work for small businesses and startups in Jordan. And so it was an amazing, I would say, way for so many women leaders to come together and to meet each other. And it really speaks to the ethos of what the Power Up is about, which is the world should come together in order to solve a global problem. It cannot be solved alone. And the more like-minded people we bring together, the faster the change will happen and the more amazing things would happen. And we were lucky to have an event in the same week as the Invest Her Summit, which is we're in talks with to partner up as well. Invest Her Summit is part of Global Invest Her. That's an organization headquartered in France that's 10 years old. And they're in business of creating resources to match female founders and funders so that they can find each other and solve the access problem. And they were having a summit on the gender funding gap and the access to capital in Paris. And it was wonderful to have events on both sides of the ocean at the same time on the same topic.
I've never been to Paris, but I'm sure it's gorgeous. And to be in that setting, wow, I cannot even imagine. You must have met some really powerful women from around the world.
Well, I didn't get to go to the summit. We did help to raise awareness about it, but I have been to Paris multiple times. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. And if you haven't been, I highly recommend that you take a weekend even and go, and it's absolutely wonderful. I can only, judging from the energy of the event that Power Up generated, where we had over 200 people attending, I can only imagine what the summit felt like. It must have been amazing, and I hope that it generated a lot of follow through on the issues that were.
Yeah, that would have been hard to concentrate there, but just because when you're in a new country, oh, I want to go see stuff, but the purpose of why you're there is completely different. So I think that trumps sightseeing for sure. So let's talk about the National Small Business Association, NSBA. You're involved with that. You wear so many hats, and I relate to that, but I also know that it can be a lot. So we'll talk about how you balance all of these things that you're doing, but let's talk about what NSBA is.
Sure. So in April this year, I got an email from NSBA, which stands for National Small Business Association, to join the Leadership Council. National Small Business Association represents small businesses in the United States. It was founded in 1937, and it counts around 65,000 members in all 50 states. The Leadership Council is a collection of individuals that have a chance to go to the local and federal government and the media and lobby for the interest of small business. So when they reached out to me and they offered me to become part of the Leadership Council, I told them then, I have one issue that I'm very focused on and that I would like to advocate for, and this is the gender funding gap and fair access to capital, and will they be willing to support it? And they gave me carte blanche to pursue that issue and basically advocate for whatever issue I feel passionate about, as using their platform as a vehicle, as a conduit to do it. And what's been happening recently is there's been actually so many exciting developments on the fair access to capital front. Alison Byers, who I don't know if you got a chance to speak with, she is a founder of Scroobius. I didn't know about this until 2 weeks ago. She became an advocate and ideated a bill that's been signed by Senate in California about fair access to capital for women and minorities. It's a bill number 54 that's now went for signature to Governor Newsom. It's the first bill of its kind, and it asks venture capital firms to disclose their investments in women and in other types of minorities in terms of what percentage they invest in such founders and what amount of capital, and then how that compares with the amount of capital invested in non-minorities. Because there's obvious disparity, not only that less capital goes, but even what kind of capital gets awarded. I know also the same problem exists on the debt side. Shopify recently published an article where they talked about the banks do not award loans to female founders, thus preventing many small businesses from growing, because not every business needs to go for venture capital. Most businesses do not. But if you don't get access to debt, then you're very limited in what you can do as a business. And Silicon Valley Bank was one of the banks that actually did award funding to female entrepreneurs, but often not on the same terms, on owners' terms. And because they didn't have any other options, they were forced to take those terms. So as part of my role in SBA, I would like to address that kind of disparity as well, because this is also discrimination just on the bank side, not just on the VC side. So this bill focuses on VCs, because before there was no regulation of private capital at all. And that's the first one of its kind. There is a similar bill being pushed in Massachusetts. There was a call on Sunday that I've attended where a state senator was there, state representative, and talked about the bill and her efforts to push it through. And I would like to do the same in New York as part of NSBA. I believe that policies need to complement the ecosystem support. We're creating ecosystem support with Power Up, as well as many other programs that we're collaborating with. But it would be great if that was complemented by what their, by the lack of discrimination on as a law that would be passed by government, starting with the US, but then hopefully around the world at some point as well. So this is my role with NSBA, and I'm beginning, I'm learning about the lobbying efforts, and I'm putting a team together, a legal team and a founding team, investor team, to help me get it through.
I think that's really inspiring, honestly. I love that there's so much availability, though. And, a lot of people don't think about debt as a way to fund their business. It's usually not on my radar, to be honest, because I know that with debt becomes, okay, you got to start making payments. Do they allow you to delay making payments, like maybe 1 or 2 months, so you can kind of organize yourself? Is that anything that they do? I know that wasn't a question I threw out there, but I'm pretty sure you might know the answer.
In terms of debt, you have to be in a certain position of your business in order to be eligible for it.
Right.
In terms of your cash flow and in terms of your ability to repay. Will they allow delays? It depends on the terms of the loan. The terms of the loan are specified in a thing called covenants. And so covenants may require you to maintain certain financial health of your company before they force repayment. Some loans take a percentage of your revenue every month, and they allow you to look for a lot of revolving credit lines where you can continue borrowing, similar to a credit card, just a bigger credit card. So when you
like I think it's a line of credit, right?
Exactly, revolving line of credit. So just like a credit card, just a bigger credit card. And so there are a lot of, I would say, different debt products, and then you would need a finance person to help you choose which one is good for you. But also, if you have a banker for your business, they may be able to present with some of the options. I don't recommend that you only go with one option. You always should look at multiple options on the market to see what's available and to choose the one that best fits your needs. And for that, you may want to get financial advice, because once you take a loan, you don't want to get yourself in a position where you can't get out of it. Right. Or when you have to, drain your liquidity or have to put up your personal funds in order to repay an obligation, or have to go bankrupt, right? So you don't want to be in a position. Absolutely, for a lot of businesses, that is the way to go. The traditional things that will get finances, working capital. Let's say you extend credit to customers, so you have to buy inventory. You can't get revenue before you buy inventory, so you would want to get a loan instead of spending your own money. Similarly, if you have accounts receivable, which is your credit to customers, you sell something, but you don't get that money for a number of months, let's say 3 months, but in that time, you still need to run your business. So there are products available that allow you to extract money right away for those things. That's a very traditional form of financing. And then, of course, you can just take a like a revolving line of credit, or for other needs, or just a general loan that will have a certain repayment date and interest payments. And sometimes interest payments you can delay until the time the loan is due, and sometimes you would have to make those payments on a certain basis, let's say quarterly or semi-annually or annually. That depends on the terms of the loan.
So I went to their website because you were talking about it. I love being able to, like, while you're talking, sit here and go, oh, what about this? And check stuff out. So I looked this up, NFIB. National, is that? No, that's not it. National Association.
NSBA.biz is the website.
Yeah. And I swear I was on it too, but it took me to another place. Yeah. So I love that they have so much information here, but I also went back and I'm on the right page now. Anyway, the point being is that this is a really great resource, and I really appreciate that you're sharing that with our listeners, and that they can see, wow, they may not have thought about all of these ways that can work for them, not necessarily be something they're afraid of or think that it's not going to work at all.
I will say what I found out is I'm just beginning this process. This is a new thing for me to, work with the government to, let's say, ideate a new law. It's a very exciting journey that I'm getting on, that I feel very passionate about. But what I was surprised to find out from the call on Sunday, is that the Massachusetts rep said, we're accessible. We want to hear about the problems. We want to hear from the constituents. So reach out, tell us what's going on, tell us how you would like to solve the problem, because oftentimes when you're in the government, you may not have the expertise that's required in order to create a solution that will work for the private sector, nor will you know as much information as somebody is dealing with that problem day to day. And of course, from their perspective, what does the government want? The government wants to generate jobs and stimulate economic growth. And guess what? If you allow for the best ideas to come forward, regardless of whether they generated by minorities or women or men, doesn't matter, you will win as a government. Also, you want to solve a socioeconomic problem where you'd like all of your constituents to be treated fairly, right? And so you kind of kill two birds with the same stone if you become on the side of laws like that. That's the one that's being passed in California right now.
We're going to take a short break to acknowledge our sponsor, Transcend Network, and we will be right back.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat5 Studios.
So we're back to the second half of our show, where we focus a lot on the future of jobs and industries in 2030. And I know 2030 is on your radar also. So what do you think 2030 is going to look like? It's been a year later, so all of the forecasts, they've moved around, they've shifted. So we've been talking about things about money. What do you think it's going to be like?
Well, generative AI, I think, is the big thing that happened in the past year. And in fact, as a computer scientist who's actually majored in artificial intelligence back in college, that's been a very interesting and worrying development for me. Because so there are good things about generative AI, where a lot of things can be done better, research can be done faster. At the same time, you want to be careful about what you're creating. And laws need to be created and policies need to be created to really monitor what's being done. A lot of companies that are run by very smart people may have different motivations, and people may have different motivations, or even don't know what's going to happen out of their work. And so I think that this is a great thing that needs special care. And anytime man begins playing God, bad things happen. And on that side, we're actually, one of my creative projects from the past came back. I am executive producing a movie. I know that's another thing that I'm doing. Somehow I find time for my passions that are important to me. And it is about ethics of entrepreneurship. And it is about what happens with men playing God. And it is about the price of success. And how far do you go before you admit that you've gone too far? and you can't win. And I think this movie is actually based on my idea that I conceived a decade ago, but it's even more relevant now than before because of generative AI, because of what's been happening with cryptocurrency and NFT market and the journey that they've gone on, and so much fraud that happened in the cryptocurrency market where there wasn't enough oversight, and people were driven by ego and greed instead of the desire to change the world and serve others, which is how you actually get money, because that's all connected. But if you are driven by money, if you are driven by your ego, you're not going to make the right decisions. And then bad things may happen as a result to you and to people around you and to others who your invention may affect. And so I think this is a very important topic, and we've begun talking about it as part of the Startup Station, and we're going to keep talking about generative AI and the ethics of entrepreneurship going forward.
I agree. That's always one of my questions about ethics. And when I say I agree, that we need to be putting more checks and balances in place, like, because we can do this, you're absolutely right. When people start playing God, no matter what it is, bad things can happen because they're motivated by their own purpose, not by the greater picture. So on the side of ethics, I know that there are some groups that have already started forming around how to be using AI responsibly. And I saw a movie trailer that came out. I don't even know what the movie was for. It was last week, and it said, "We never should have let AI out of the box." It's like an end of the world, an Armageddon, if you will, type of a movie. And I sat there and I thought, you have to be able to see that will happen, but there are ways that we can help manage it and grow. I looked for some local groups that I could belong to, or even on a national level. I don't know if there is any national, because you're kind of connected with the DC group and everything. Is there anything that's right out there that comes to your mind about, I haven't even Googled it, ethics and AI, like on a national level? Is the government doing anything, or is there a group that's tackling this? And it's okay if you don't know. So
I'll be honest, I don't know. I have not gotten involved in that topic yet on any.
Well, neither have I, and I just popped that into my head.
Yes, but I know that there are a number of companies that agree to work with the government on creating policies that will monitor their activities. I mean, of course, OpenAI is one of them. I don't know which others. I would imagine Google and Microsoft. They're also doing a lot with AI, but there are a lot of other ones. And so I don't know, about specific organizations, but I'm sure that one can easily find out if one is interested. And if anyone feels inspired to do the same work that I want to do for Fair Access to Capital, but for generative AI, it's very inspiring to me as a citizen of the United States that one can go to the government and begin working with them directly on issues that are important. And in a few months, there can be a bill passed in California on a topic that you're passionate about. I think that kind of opportunity never occurred to me. It always seemed like, hey, you elect an official and then they do something kind of disjointed from what I want or what I'm passionate about. But it sounds like that's an ongoing conversation. And so if anyone is passionate about AI out there enough to actually take action, I think it's easy to take and it's easy to get involved.
It is. And I just did a really quick search because, I am very passionate about it. And I guess I'm kind of a little bit embarrassed that I didn't say something, but I'm going to push that aside and just go, I'm doing it now. So I looked it up while we're talking. It says there is a group, and it's UNESCO. They recently released a global draft recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, and it's unesco.org. It is the ethics of artificial intelligence, and it is a council. So I'm going to do a little bit more research on this. I think maybe we should co-write something.
I think I'm open to it.
Yeah, yeah. We
Because I
could
realized
co-write
that
an
one
article.
can do it. One can do it. And I think the key is, because we have so many things going on, is to put a team together. And not only that, it will be better because there are more brains involved, but it will also distribute the work.
Yeah, even Harvard Business Review, they wrote an article, it was up here. I don't know what the date is, but why you need an AI ethics committee in business. I mean, definitely. So I'm down for doing that with you if you're so inclined. So
Yes.
we'll talk more offline on this
We'll
side
talk
of it.
more. We'll talk more.
We'll talk more on that one. I'm very, very interested in that topic because I really see how it can impact our jobs. And that's where I raise that question usually with my guests and go, just because we can make automations more, make things faster for us, doesn't mean we should always get rid of it. Because there is this place where some people, I know I check out at a grocery store. I can self-check at any store now, a lot of stores, right? But there are some people that they're not going to be programmers. They're not going to be people that are scientists. They're not going to be, in professions just because of some limitations, either in intelligence or sometimes it could be a language barrier. It can be a whole lot of reasons. It can be because, that's their age and they don't want to do it. It can be so many reasons. And just because we can make things more automated and eliminate people's jobs doesn't always mean we should. That's where I go. There's a McDonald's here in Florida, Orlando, and you can go into it and there's not a single person there. You just go in, you order your food, it comes out, and it's, there's nobody managing or cooking that food. It's all run by, machines. And I went, I don't like that. I wouldn't want to go to the McDonald's where there's not a friendly face smiling at me saying good morning. So that's the question that I go is just because we can doesn't mean we should.
I think with McDonald's, it's probably because you expect a face to see there. But imagine you were born in an age where that's just how stores operated. So that wouldn't be your expectations. You wouldn't feel that you're missing something. You would be like, hey, let me go get the food and get out. I didn't know that I've seen that there's limited staff. I didn't see McDonald's in New York yet when there's no staff.
Yeah.
But I can see from the business perspective, then that's probably a lot of savings on that.
It can be because you're eliminating people, right? But again, I go back to the question. Just because we can do it doesn't mean we should. And it also, I feel like it begins to make us more in silos as people because we're not learning those social skills that we need to have when we either go out to eat, and we should be able to respect the fact that, oh, a person served me. There's a person behind everything that's AI. We are creating our own future. I'm fully aware of it. But I also feel like not everybody's going to fit into those boxes that we say they're going to be in technology.
Right, absolutely. And so I think people are concerned about how that AI is being trained, because the people who are creating these data sets, they may have implicit biases. And so they're then creating AI that has the same biases in the way that it operates. That's one thing. And another thing, that you brought up, that you're going to eliminate jobs, and then some people will just be left without prospects. And that's a huge problem on reskilling and upskilling the labor force. For example, the trucking industry is going through a major technological change. And if we're going to get to the point where those jobs are eliminated, what's going to happen with those hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be left really without a means to provide for their families? And I think from the government, that's a very big problem to think about. And when they think about education, when they think about social support, because if they don't solve for that problem, if they don't start solving for this problem already, they're going to end up with a very big social disparity that is going to lead to more crime and unsafe neighborhoods. Because what are people going to do? Or suicides and depression and a lot of mental health illnesses, because people are going to be unhappy and people are going to turn to other means of occupying themselves that may not be productive. So I completely agree that not only that we may lose control of what's going on altogether, and that can be a survival existential threat, there are, some other economic and socioeconomic threats that can emerge even before that, which are just as drastic and can affect us significantly.
I really like this conversation. I would build a whole show around this conversation, because I look at what real diversity is, and diversity is representative of people that do not fit into what is either average or, above average. There's a lot of people that are on the other side, and we create the future that we're wanting. I believe that's part of why science fiction movies exist, and it helps for people to go, wow, I didn't think about that, and then they start going, oh, that's a great idea. We can do this. We can do this with AI, right? So again, I guess I'm going to stand on the soapbox one more little time here as I go. My biggest concern, I go the best possible scenario and I go the worst possible scenario. When I think about these things, I go the worst possible scenario in my head is that we become something akin to such a futuristic society that we eliminate those people that have no purpose, similar to something that Hitler did. And in other areas of the world, I go, that is my biggest fear.
Yeah, or it's going to be Gattaca, because I don't know if you've seen the article on BBC.com where they were able to grow an embryo without using from stem cells, without using sperm and I forget in English, the egg.
An egg, yeah.
An egg, yeah. So without using the biological cells, they were able to grow an embryo from stem cells. And
a human?
That happened. Yes, that happened a couple of weeks ago. And that path of, I think, is very dangerous, because then you kind of turn the course of biology.
You turned into God. Yeah.
You turn into God. And so either you create an artificial God, or you can create biological humans the way you want, right? And then completely decide what kind of humans you want to create. And so, and that is not good from the nature perspective. That is always has chaos component presented. And then, like we've talked about, it's the diversity that drives everything forward in innovation and creativity, and for things to get better. And if you start controlling that in any way, it's not going to happen. So we live in interesting times, and I think everybody who wants can have the responsibility and the option to do something that feels right.
Yeah. Well, that was on the cautionary tale side, but on this side, we're going to finish in a more positive way. What is the best mentoring advice that you want to share with our listeners? And keep in mind, that is something I know you answered before, but we have so many little pieces of nuggets that we can share as mentoring advice. And I'm going to guess it would be the very same thing you just said. We are all able, if you're listening to this show, and no matter what your age, we always have a choice. We are all able to determine those things. But what would you say is your best mentoring advice for our listeners?
I would say that we all have dreams, and sometimes those dreams seem very big and unattainable. And I would encourage everyone out there not to decide in advance what will happen with any dream, and to go forward and pursue it. And for me, the way how I was able to more effectively overcome my doubts and my fears is to pursue a dream that was bigger than those fears, that I felt so passionate about, that I almost didn't care if I heard a no or if some path did not work out, that I believed that that dream was so important to make happen in reality, that I didn't care what it would take to get there. And it wasn't about me being right about pursuing a certain course of action or attaining a certain decision with my colleagues. It was about a bigger picture. And I think if you have a dream like that, I would just go do it, because great things can happen when you feel fearless.
I was writing it down as you were saying it. Yeah, great things can happen when you feel fearless. Yes. I love this. And I just want you to know, you really inspired me. You gave me some inspiration where you did not even know. Encouragement is a good thing. And what I liked is the fact that you said, when you have a dream that's bigger than your fears, yes, yes, sometimes, I mean, that is exactly the dream that I have. That's why I started Employers for Change. And it is so big. And I just sat there and went, okay, but, and it is what drives me. It is what drives me. So thank you.
And then your life has more meaning and has more light, and you get to meet so many interesting people that enrich your life further if you are driven by the dream that is bigger by your ambitions.
Mm-hmm.
I would say. And then that has been my experience. And my first experience was that when I produced a concert for Ukraine a year ago, which we've talked about in the first podcast, and it continued with Power Up. And now it continues with other things that I get involved in that are all connected in my mind. They're all part of the same thing, whether it's a media project to bring forward aspects of ethics of entrepreneurship, or its advocacy to create policy support for fair treatment of women and minorities, or ecosystem support in the form of Power Up. It's all part of the same solution towards creating a better tomorrow.
Well, I love this conversation. Now, we'll just remind our listeners, how can people find you? Because I'm copying your website onto the show notes, and I also pulled up your YouTube and also your company LinkedIn profile. But is there any other ways that people can find you? Are there any other ways?
The company website is a great way. You can book a 30-minute free consultation call with me. You can also reach out directly on LinkedIn or my email, victoria@thestartupstation.com. I invite you to follow Power Up page to stay abreast of what we're doing there. It's on LinkedIn. And then we'll also share a form to sign up to the mailing list for Power Up, as we share monthly updates on what's happening with the program and how you could get involved.
Yes, please send me those links. I don't have them really handy, but if you'll send those to me, I'll make sure they get onto the show notes too, that we share.
Amazing.
Victoria,
thank you so much.
It's been so wonderful catching up with you. We'll continue the conversation offline. Just so our listeners know that there's look for stuff is what I can say. But so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Isabella, for allowing me a space where I can talk about the things that I'm passionate about in a very supportive and friendly environment.
No, thank you.
We want to thank our sponsor, Cat5 Studios, and thank you to our video team, Gabe Laforte, Tommy Myers, Andrew Pagat, and Jalissa Hurtado. Our music is by Charles Lawrence Lead. Visit Employers for Change at www.e4c.tech to learn how you can create real diversity and inclusive culture while skilling your people for the future of work. Thank you for supporting the Intern Whisperer by subscribing to us on Podbean, our Employers for Change YouTube channel, or stream from your favorite podcast channel. And please leave us comments. We love comments and we love shares, and we love it when you tag other people to have them listen.